Hey guys, Jerry Berg, the Poor Historian here, and I wanted to share with you a little bit about a new addition to my collection. However, I realized that one of the most fun parts about antique sword collecting is when you come across a mystery. And what we have right here in front of me, in front of us, is a mystery. This is very unique, very cool, and what I wanted to do is share a little bit about it with you to see if you yourself can help me identify some information about it. I have so much fun doing research, talking with people, getting information about what their thoughts are on an antique something like this, that I wanted to share it with you guys. See if you guys can share a little bit of your thoughts, your research, before I actually go ahead and make a professional video showing some of the details of this particular sword, for lack of a better term. So, if you have thoughts, if you have ideas, please post them in the comments below. I'm going to go over a little bit of the details of it without going into too much of what I believe it is. So please share your thoughts below too. So, what this is overall is immensely fascinating is what it is. This inner part here and up the blade, of course, is actually a 19th century Saber-Bayonet, as it's called. This would be attached to the bottom of a gun. The gun barrel would be coming this way. It would end about here. And the saber bayonet would be attached to the bottom of it as in standard bayonet form. But somewhere in the life of this thing, someone took it and reforged the tip of the blade to curve here, curve back, and add these guards, this shell here, to turn this into a basket-hilted training sword. And you can see that on the bayonet itself, this part here, this edge, is where the sharp part would be, but this back part has this nice flat, wide part, as saber bayonets and many other knives and swords do, the back edge. So what they did is actually reversed it. They made the curve go this way, so that the sharp edge, which is now actually very dull, is so that the front edge is actually this wide flat part, so that you can grip it here in the guard and use it for sparring, I would assume, which would seem to be the only reason why they would make the back part the front part, while the fat wide back would be the part you would hit someone with, which is neat. So my hope is that we can identify the nation of origin of this bayonet, and by doing so, hunt down a relative era of when that bayonet was from. Thus, now of course lots of different things could happen. The bayonet may not have been reforged by the soldier that it was issued to. It may also not be contemporary. Someone may have found this in their grandfather's attic and thought, wow, it would be cool to turn that into a training sword. So the modifications may not be contemporary with the construction and manufacture of the bayonet itself. We probably will never know unless we find a well-researched antique artifact just like this as well. But in the meantime, all we've got is speculation. So, couple notes that I had on the bayonet. The saber bayonet was very popular in the later half of the 19th century. In the United States, it was definitely used with light infantry, the Zouaves, during the Civil War, but immensely popular with the French as well over in Europe. And that was where I originally got my thought. This appears, the bayonet itself, appears to be based on a chassepot French saber bayonet from the musket or rifle. That was my original thought, but most chassepot bayonets have what's called a Utegan style, where the blade itself kind of curves downward a bit. And this one, you can see, is actually a straight blade. I do not think it was reforged. The reforging job up here is actually pretty makeshift. You know, it doesn't look very clean or smooth. It looks clearly like this part was modified. Whereas if they modified the blade to remove that curve, I would assume they would leave much more markings, but this looks to be exactly the way it was, and they just reforged the tip up here to make it curved. Which is fairly fascinating. That also seems to, if we take that as, if we assume that's the case, that could narrow down our possible Saber-Bayonet models. I'm not ruling out the Chassepo. It may also be American as well. But unfortunately, the best way to determine the model or identification of one of these antiques, aside from being knowledgeable in the models yourself, is to find any markings on it. And the only markings that there are actually right on this piece here, on this side and the other side. And they are just numbers. I'm going to see if I can get a reminder of what they are. This side says 7147, right up in here, 7147. And this side says 3268, right up here, 3268. That's it. That's the only markings on this entire thing. So the other thing to point out is that a lot of the Chassepo bayonets are brass here all the way up. And this part here would be brass as well. And this is not. This is clearly iron, maybe very worn out steel, but likely iron. And I am also, by the way, not very familiar with the history of saber bayonets, which is one of the reasons why I'm posting this video, for you guys to help me out and share your knowledge. There would also be an additional piece which is missing from this, right where the guard, which was added later, I would assume, is right now. There would be another piece, a little loop would be sticking up here for the barrel of the gun to stick through, and occasionally they would also have a little guard down here as well to protect your hand, which is not here, which would also aid in identifying it. Now the guard itself, this clamshell guard, or basket hilt guard, not clamshell, I'm sorry, basket hilt guard, is made of 3 pieces of brass something. So let's look at this one here. You can see it kind of has this rounded bit down here, and then it splits into 2 legs that then go up and are attached to this main guard piece here. And then it goes down. This is all the same piece of metal here. And to do the exact same thing, just 1 layer down right there. And then that's one piece. You also have a third piece right here, which is just the 1 leg. There's no leg on the other side. And for whatever reason, there's a third piece, which is this. Don't know what that is. It might just be there to fill my to fill the little gap there, maybe make it a little bit more tight, not sure. But you can see that it's pretty makeshift, like it's just wrapped around the top to hold it in place. And it does look like it's taken a beating over the years. I would assume that it's not weak enough to... I would assume that it would actually be hits sparring with another sword that would cause some of the dents in the guard here. And there's actually, let me see if I can find it. There's one part right here that looks exactly like it, like a sword hit, like it was sparring with someone else and took that little dent at some point in his life, as well as all these little markings down the blade as well. So that's what I've got. There's a few details too I wanted to point out that might help in identifying the model of bayonet. One would be this little connector here, which should also be a part of connecting it to the rifle, and then also the top. Now this seemed to be unique in my little bit of research that I did. Let's see if I can get it in the light here. The groove here goes all the way into that iron bit at the end, all the way down the length, all the way to the bottom. And that didn't seem very common with the types of saber bayonets that I was trying to familiarize myself with upon receiving this item. So that seems to be something that might help in identifying the exact model that this thing is, to try to find a year and an model and nation of origin for this saber bayonet. Hopefully hunting down the stories behind how and why it was converted into this training sword. So that is all I got for you. If you have questions about the details of it, please post in the comments. I would definitely love some assistance in identifying what this thing is before I go ahead and make an actual professional review video about it. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.